If we're flipping properties through the auctions, we never really see the property unless it's very local to us. There's simply no point in going. The reason being, if you can figure out what that thing's going to sell for in the auction room, for example, which is where we sell most of our trading stock, you don't really need to know the ins and outs of a big refurbishment project or whatever. You don't need to know that. If you just get a ballpark figure, and that might sound a little bit naive to some people, but the reality is that I've never lost money on any of those things, any of these trades or flips to the auction room or even on the open market. We don't touch them, we just buy them cheap, 30-35% below market. We just chuck them in the auction room, we turn a profit on those. You don't need to be a builder and quote jobs to the exact pound. You just need to know a ballpark figure and know where the market is at any given time. So this is why I often don't see these properties. If it gets sent to me and it's not within a few miles of where I operate, all I need to see is the figures, and I can make a decision within 15-20 minutes usually. So yes, you know, if it's local, go and see the property, but if you know that that's a cheap piece of real estate and you know you can sell it for more in a quick period of time, you don't need to go and see it. You know, it doesn't matter if it needs a heavy cosmetic refurb. If you put a 35-40 grand refurb on that thing and work it into your numbers and say, yeah, it's going to cost me or an investor X amount to do that, work that into your figures, know that you're going to be able to sell it for X amount. You know, it's basic math, basic trading. It doesn't have to be a house. It's just, in this instance, as I'm talking, it's just a house. The house is just the widget. We've just had a couple of offers accepted. These are going to be flipped, so we're just going to buy them and flip them straight into auction, I think. And at the moment, we're being heavily influenced by what the market's telling us, because I've just made a couple of phone calls and to a couple of local agents, and one of the properties, right, they've got it's a bit of a wrecker, right? It's a full refurb, 45 grand, needs everything doing. There's a bit of structural issues out the back, and that's right up our street. You know, usually we go direct to vendor. There's no point going on market because there's too much competition at the lower end of the market for that type of price point. I think that was on the market for about 140 grand. Around here, that's quite, you know, a relatively good price. I just spoke to the agent, and the agent said we've got 80 viewings next week on it. 80. So that's the market telling you that that type of property is high in demand. So when we go direct to vendors on this type of stuff, usually through our network now, they send us these deals rather than actually marketing for it. We'll buy that, chuck it straight into auction. We'll take a spread on it. So if we picked that up, for example, for 100 grand direct to vendor, chucked it into auction and sold it for 140, we'd probably net about 35 grand on that. And that's a strategy that I think in any market it can work, to be fair, quite well, because very few people can operate to the speed and certainty needed to make that happen. So when we say we're going to buy something, very often we can exchange within, well, we can do it immediately, but usually the solicitors ain't ready to do that. So 48 hours is comfortable to be able to exchange contracts, and if we're buying it cash, we can complete then. And a lot of people, you know, say that can't be done, that can't be done. That can 100% be done if the legals, if both sides, both legals are happy. And we often pay for the vendor solicitors as well, just to sweeten the deal. We've got around £500,000 at the moment out acquiring these deals, in legals, ready to complete, and we're just going to flip all of them on. Now we look on those for a net margin of around 15% net margin as a minimum, as a standard that we hit. And it's important when you do the numbers to always maintain that standard. Now, of course, sometimes things don't go according to plan, but when you don't have those standards, you sort of buy anything. So you need like a floor price as a standard for what you'll accept. And if you start, changing that and lowering your standards, that's when you can get caught. So we always go for 15% net margin, and sometimes we hit 5, 6, 7%. Okay, it's not good enough, but we always expect to hit that 15%. Just something to keep mindful of, because I see people, when there's that much competition, like there's 80 people for that deal, we very often see people paying too much for it because they want to win. Well, no, just keep your floor price and go, okay, that's all I can offer, and walk away. They watch Homes Under the Hammer, they all think it's easy to do and blah blah blah. When you're a professional at this type of stuff, you can't lower your standards, and that's the same in any business. When you start lowering your standards personally and as a company, that's when you start losing money. So we offered on 4 properties today blind, which is to say that we didn't actually go and see them. And the reason that I do that quite often when I trade through the auctions, and sometimes back on the open market, but generally speaking through the auctions, is because I don't have time to be going all around the West Midlands in particular, but also around the country anyway, viewing these properties, when I can do 10-15 minutes worth of research and I know what I can pay for that. Generally speaking, the feedback I would have had from the network, which is to say sourcing agents or something that have sent me the property in the first place, I'd have all the information there about how much the refurb's going to cost. Of course I have to trust these people, but the guys that I have around me I do trust, and they're very good at what they do. So as an example, if I know that I can sell a property for 150 grand in the auction room, and there's a 20 grand refurb needed for any buyer, and the end value is say 210, 220, that's going to leave them a nice healthy margin in it. I know what I can pay for that property at the beginning. If I know that in done-up condition it's worth 100 grand and it needs 10 grand spending on it, I know what I need to be paying for that. And I always try, I said earlier, I always try and hit a 15% net margin. So yeah, people can come up with all these spreadsheets and whatever, but it's very simple maths. You don't need to overcomplicate everything. It's a very basic trade. I was speaking to a couple of guys earlier who buy and sell all sorts of stuff, cosmetics and whatever. And it's exactly the same. It's just a different widget. And because it's property, it's relatively slow in comparison to other widgets. But there's no difference really. You don't need to overcomplicate the process. Unless you're selling thousands of pounds worth of courses, there's absolutely no need to overcomplicate what's going on. In the near future, I'll do an example of what I've paid for a property. We won't go around there because it's quite far away, but I'll show pictures and stuff, and then I'll actually do and show the live auction and the process and the fees and all that, and I'll go through the whole deal, just so people can get a feel for it, because I don't think people appreciate sometimes the simplicity of just buying and selling something without needing to do excessive refurbishment work and stuff. I love that strategy. It's probably my favourite strategy, just because my character isn't, I'm a deal maker, I'm an in and out guy. Whereas a lot of people like to buy and hold everything. I prefer to buy and hold commercial stuff on 5, 10, 15 year leases with good tenants. I like holding that stuff. Very little ongoing management and that sort of stuff. Whereas the trading residential stock, in and out quick. If you can buy stuff for 35, 40% discount on market rate, or market value, then you're going to make a profit, whether you sell that back on the open market, which will be slower because generally speaking people need mortgages and bridging and whatever. But if you put it in the auction, there's a guaranteed sale. Hammer goes down, exchange of contracts, everyone's happy. And you can buy these with cash, bridging loans, investor capital. When you build those relationships, there's literally nothing that can stop you other than finding the deal, negotiating the deal, and getting the wheels in motion. But once you've done that, yeah, it might take 12 months, 18 months. But once you've actually been in the game long enough, it's in my opinion, one of the most exciting and satisfying property strategies. Buy to lets, HMOs, service accommodation, it's so like people intensive and slow and cumbersome, whereas like the velocity of money, get it in, get it out, go again, get it in, get it out, get it, go again, just suits my personality.